Hello and welcome back to the Educated Barbarian series. We're going to dive into the Hagakure again. I'm very excited. After that break that we took, I want to get back into it and discuss the wisdom of samurai with you. A master swordsman relayed the following narrative in his old age. Training over a lifetime involves various phases. Unskilled men at the lowest level will make little progress at the start of their training, and their ineptness is obvious to themselves and others. Men at this level are of no use. Those at the middle level are still unusable, but are aware of their deficiencies, and are able to identify defects in others. Men at the upper level have useful skills, are proud of their degree of proficiency, enjoy the praise, and empathize with those who lack ability. This level has worth. Okay, so here we're talking about the lifetime of a warrior, the lifetime of someone who are going to use their body and develop its abilities. And what Shoujo says is that a master, so someone who's attained the peak of the skills and the craft of wielding a sword, has to go through these phases. It's unavoidable. And I think that it's the same for lifting, it's the same for training. Yes, some people are gifted, but people who are gifted are not immediately able to jump through the phases. They still have to go through the phase, but they might not stay within that phase for as long as you. For example, I've known people who were novices for 4 weeks, and then they were intermediate for 6 months, and then they were advanced, right? Some people stay novices for years. It's just a difference in talent, but at the end of the day, you have to get through the phases. So the people who are unskilled, they make little to no progress at the start, and they are clearly unable to perform certain tasks. That's obvious to everyone, right? Those are beginners, novices. And they are of no use, of course. The middle level, they are still of no use, but they know where they have flaws. And that's super important too. I think the ability to realize where you're lacking is when you start to really evolve. And in my opinion, I discussed that in the video, I don't like using strength numbers or even size to determine if someone is an intermediate. To me, an intermediate is someone who's realized what they want out of this, and they're able to also say, okay, these are my weak points that I need to focus on. And Yamamoto discusses that in the same effect. And that's important, they are able to identify defects in others. That is a good and a bad thing too, because when you are at this middle level, you still don't know anything. You're still of no use, as he says, but you can see when others are not doing well, and in many cases, this is not used for good. It is used to make people feel bad about themselves, usually who are beginners themselves, and it's a toxic realization because the skill and the expertise that these people develop is immediately used to put people down. And of course, in all aspects of life, you should never do that. If you are going to say something to someone, it should be to help them, not make them feel bad about themselves, because it has no point. Men at the upper level have skills, they are proud, and that's something that across the board I've always seen. People who have put the work in and who are collecting the fruits of their labor are always proud. It's not a bad thing. It is a good thing. You should be proud of your accomplishments. We live in a society where we're trying to muzzle pride, we're trying to make sure people stay humble, but that's not being humble. You cannot be humble for the sake of others. Being humble is for you. Being humble is saying, I've been doing that for a while, I'm excellent, but I can still be better, and I'm going to use my excellence to help people. That's being humble. Saying, oh, I'm worthless and I'm bad and don't even look at me, that's just being a carpet. It's not being humble. There's a difference. A warrior can be humble, but you cannot self-humiliate yourself. There's nothing worse than that. They enjoy the praise, of course, there's nothing wrong with that. You've accomplished something, you should enjoy it. And they empathize with those who lack ability, and this is key. They are above the middle level who are going to make fun of the people who know nothing. Because when you've gotten to that point, if you have still in your mind the memory of what you were when you started, then you can only feel kindness and love for the people who are starting to, because since they are you, when you started. It also means that they are going to eventually get your level. You are them and they are you. So you being here means nothing. It's just time in reality. It's how I see it. When I see a noob in the gym, I don't think, oh, I'm so much better. I think I have 10 years on that guy. Give him 10 years of training and see where he is. That's how I see things. That's what I believe. However, men who have traversed to an even higher stage of expertise in swordsmanship will pretend that they are unknowing. But those around them will sense that they have unmatched skill. This is probably the zenith of attainment for most men. Beyond this extends the ultimate realm that is impossible to describe in words. It becomes clear to the master that this realm is boundless and his skill can never be perfect. With this realization, the master, being fully conscious of his imperfections, is neither conceited nor contemptuous, but continues traveling the path. Again, I love this book so much. I even love it more than the Book of Five Rings because Musashi still feels a little foreign to me. I cannot really relate to him because I think our characters were too different. Shoujo, I have a kindness and a fondness of heart for him because I think we would have gotten along if we had met each other. So here he discusses what is above advanced, which is basically expert level. And an expert is never going to even have to open his mouth to let you know what he knows. You will be able to tell. You can call that an aura, you can call that a vibe. If you've met one of these people who spent their life doing something and now they are basically at the top of the mountain, there's a little something about them. Martial artists, just artists in general, painters, sculptors, authors, they have that charisma and they don't have to open their mouth, you can tell. And they will pretend they are unknowing. So do they pretend to deceive people? No, they just do it because it's going to transpire that they know. This is the zenith of attainment. So you could see that as like a nirvana of martial prowess. And beyond that, so this is the expert stage. And then beyond that, this is the ultimate realm that you cannot describe in words. What does that mean? It means that you need to see it in a sense as being on the path and reaching medium level, advanced level, and the expert level is when you reach the sea. Now you are on a path, maybe there are multiple paths, but what is the sea? There are no paths in the sea. Well, you would be wrong. There are paths in the sea, there are millions of them. It's just that now you've reached the infinity. Right? You could even say that if you somehow manage to get it through the sea, then there is space, right? And after space, there is void. You cannot be done. It's impossible to be done. And this is something that I always preach on the channel. There is no such thing as a natural limit. There is no such thing as maintaining. You are never, until you die and you're buried, you keep going. With this realization that the realm is boundless and his skill can never be perfect, and that's being humble in my opinion, that's what it is, the master, fully conscious of his imperfections, because you will always be imperfect, perfection only exists in the persona of God. To me, that's what God is. Outside of religion and whatever you want to say that God wants us to do on this earth, God is perfect. We are not perfect. Humans are imperfect until we die. And we will never not be that, because if you manage to be perfect, you would transcend humanity and become a god. And the master, he is neither conceited nor contemptuous. And to me, that's a state that is very important to reach, where you are fully aware that you're great, but you're not content. You're not self-indulgent. You don't get any pleasure from your achievements because you always want more. And that's what keeps you going. And as he says, the master The master who reaches that stage continues traveling the path. This is life. You travel the path. You never stop. You never go back. You need to keep going. Lord Yagyu once said, I do not know how to defeat others. All I know is the path to defeat myself. Today, one must be better than yesterday, and tomorrow better than today. The pursuit of perfection is a lifelong quest that has no end. Super important. Even for martial arts. And that's something that some people might not agree with, but when you step into a ring, into a cage, and you fight someone, another man, who are you trying to defeat? You're not trying to defeat the person in front of you, you're trying to defeat yourself. Why? Because in reality, the only thing that can stop you is your own inability to avoid a blow, dodge it, block it, or finish the fight fast enough. So you're fighting against yourself. When you train, who do you train against? You train against yourself. You're trying to push those limits. And you also find, and that's one of my favorite quotes from a French author, Pierre Bottero, who said, the best of the best train within their mind the idea of themselves. Others train with the idea of someone else. You don't train to surpass others, because when you surpass them, what happens? You're just going to look for the next guy to surpass, and then if that guy doesn't exist, what do you do? Are you just going to stagnate? You know, that's a real thing. If you've met people who are extremely good in a domain, the issue is that it's sort of the tale of the frog in the well. If you're surrounded by no one who can challenge you, the love for the sport is going to die. But if you are fueled by a will to always surpass yourself, then that never dies. You could be in a forest by yourself. You would keep improving and improving and improving with no stop. And that is the path to defeat yourself. This is the way. You're trying to find a way to defeat yourself without really defeating yourself, without injuring yourself, without creating any type of problems that are going to make you unable to keep moving up the path, while at the same time trying to push the limits so that you keep advancing. Today one must be better than yesterday, tomorrow better than today. The idea of constant progression, always, always, because even if it's by this, if every day you're better by this, in a year you will be a miles better. In his book of maxims, Okabegaki, Lord Naoshige wrote, deliberate lightly when deciding on weighty matters. Ishida Itei added a note to this axiom. Be meticulous when deciding on affairs of minor importance. Important matters are few in number and can be studied carefully in the course of daily affairs. From this, that is prudent to prepare for serious matters ahead of time so that they can be dealt with expediently. It is difficult to make quick decisions without planning in advance, and it is doubtful whether appropriate action can be taken. In this sense, the essence of Lord Naoshige's teaching, think lightly when deciding on weighty matters, is to envisage issues of critical importance well beforehand. So it's great that that Shoujo decided to add this, because I think it was in part 1 even where I discussed that, and I said, by quoting him, spend as little time as possible when you have to decide on weighty matters, and be as deliberate and slow as possible on small things. And here he sort of gets back to it and he says, okay, this is what it means. It means that you should always take your time, even for small details in your life, because small details are going to be arising all the time. So if you actually spend some time trying to figure them out, you might find a way to prevent them from happening in the future. What about weighty stuff that happens very rarely but is of critical importance? He says, be as fast as possible. But why? If you follow logic, you should spend even more time on these to make sure that they even less reoccur in the future. And Shoujo says, no. When it is of critical matter, you should have foreseen it, because a warrior is always prepared. Of course, you cannot prepare for the small things in your life, right? You can try and prevent them in the future, but the big things you need to prepare for. And I was listening to someone talk about that on a podcast yesterday, who was saying, big tempests in your life will happen. You cannot avoid them. They will happen. It was Jordan Peterson. He he was saying that the crisis will happen, and some of them will be major. But a lot of the time, you could have prepared for them because you knew they were coming. And when you know a tempest is coming, you prepare for it, you don't ignore it. Because once it's there, it's too late. And that's what Shoujo is saying here. Great minds think alike. You prepare for things that are going to take a lot of time to think about, so that once they appear, in a matter of seconds, you're able to decipher it and you just get rid of it because you were ready for it. And we have a full page that comes afterwards. So I think we're going to go a little longer today because I took a week break. So I want to give you a long episode for today. So I'm going to do the full page. It is commendable that you are learned fellows. But if you do not know the way, this relegates you to a level below ordinary people. Ite countered, surely there is no other way than that of sages and wise men. Conan rejoined, someone who is knowledgeable, but who does not know the way, is as flawed as a man who is supposed to be heading to the east, but is actually moving west. The more you know, the further removed from the way you become. If you learn the teaching of the sages of China through lectures and books, it does make you more knowledgeable. But you may become mistaken in thinking that you share the same wisdom, and coincidentally start looking down on ordinary people as if they are nothing more than insects. This is proof that you have veered far from the way. What can I say but Alleluia, and also how insane it is that Shoujo, or rather his contemporaries that he's quoting here, they've foreseen the age that we're living today. And what is that age? It's the age of science. Now, I'm not anti-science. Science is great. It saves lives. It develops our understanding of the world. But the vast majority of people who use science, they don't use science. They use preconceived notions or knowledge that are pre-digested by someone. They read an excerpt somewhere and they think it makes them an expert. It makes you nothing. It makes you even worse than nothing, because not only do you not know anything, but you've become conceited by that notion of knowledge that does not exist. So now you are worse than the ordinary person who knows nothing because your attitude isn't right. And that's what Conan is saying here. It's commendable that you are learned, but if you're learned and you don't practice what you speak about, it's worthless. It's a theme that is throughout history repeated again and again by philosophers. You need to wield both the pen and the sword. You need to be intelligent and you need to be physical. The two go hand in hand. They cannot exist without one another. If you're just physical, then you're a brute, you're an idiot. If you're just a pen wielder, an intellectual, then you're weak, you're soft. You need both. And both can coexist, and actually they need to coexist if you want to boost them at maximum levels, because the body and the spirit grow together. A strong mind abets a strong spirit, and vice versa. So again, Ite says, but there is no other way than that of sages and wise men, and that is a faulty way to apprehend that path of the warrior. It's not about knowledge. It's about how you apply the knowledge. And I love that paragraph so much. It's you're becoming misguided by your own ego, because the more you know, the more important you think you are, the more you think you're above other people. And he says that very clearly. You start thinking of other people as insects, but in reality, your own sense of self-importance was given to you by someone else. And as he explains it, you become mistaken in thinking that you share the same wisdom. Just because you can read Albert Einstein and somehow understand parts of it, doesn't make you as smart as that guy. It does not. And also, if you cannot read that book and establish bridges of knowledge with other portions of mathematics, physics, then you really know nothing, because the importance is connection. It's the ability to apply that knowledge. Knowing the way is to know your own faults, discovering your imperfections with endless introspection, and to remedy them by spending your life training body and mind. That is the way. The character for sage, sei, can also be read as ijiri. This is because sages know jiri, their flows, I. Buddha preached that one could master the way through shihi bensha, knowing your imperfections and quickly casting them off. If you diligently examine your own heart, it will become clear how many bad thoughts are invoked in your mind each day. You should never be contented with yourself. We've discussed the idea of asking your hard questions. This is how you keep yourself pure. This is how you keep yourself intact and untouched, because you cannot lie to your heart, and your heart will never lie to you. And the way is the discovery of your own thoughts, which is endless because you will never reach perfection, but you should always strive to reduce your thoughts to a minimum. The way is not knowing the thoughts of others. That's also the issue with these science type guys. They use that as a way to put themselves above others so that they can criticize. But that is not the point of this whole thing. This whole thing should be positivity. When it is used to be toxic, it is worthless. And you need to spend your life, not 5 years, not 10 years, your life, until your bones crack and you can't walk. And even when you can't walk, keep training body and mind. The two at the same time, as I said, not one, the two. And then he describes the practice of Buddha, saying that you can reach pretty much enlightenment by that practice. The path of the warrior leads to enlightenment. There are lots of correlation between religious beliefs and Bushido. Ite advised that this is how to achieve salvation. But even so, the way a samurai should approach life is different. If you don't believe, rather audaciously, that you are the singularly most gallant warrior in the world, it will be difficult to exhibit true valor. The extent of one's courage is evident in one's confident attitude. Pearls of knowledge after pearls of knowledge. And this is probably the most important one, but we'll discuss it next episode. Thank you for watching.